The plants that made history. Dona Marta was sweeping the sidewalk outside her house when she saw her grandson, Lucas, sitting on the doorstep, using his cell phone. He had just gotten back from school and looked bored. "Grandpa, today the teacher said that ancient plants were like medicine, food, and even currency," Lucas said, without taking his eyes off the screen. "Oh, yeah." Dona Marta stopped sweeping and leaned on the broom. "I know some that my grandmother used." "Want to hear?" Lucas looked at her suspiciously, but put his cell phone in his pocket. "Only if it's quick. I have to do homework later." "Quickly, nothing. This makes a story for the whole night." Dona Marta laughed and sat next to him. "Do you know that tree there in the square? The purple ape. The one that turns all purple in spring? That's right. The Indians used its bark to make tea. They said it cured fever and headache. My grandmother made it for me when I was little." Lucas frowned. "And did it work?" "Well, I never had a fever after that tea." Dona Marta blinked. "But it wasn't just that. The Egyptians used a plant called papyrus to make paper. You know that old book your dad keeps in the closet? In ancient times, they wrote on papyrus sheets. Like an old notebook? Exactly. And there's more. Do you know the garlic your mother uses to season meat? The ancient Greeks ate garlic before battles. They thought it gave strength. Do you swear?" Lucas widened his eyes. "So the warriors ate garlic as if it were an energy drink? More or less that." Dona Marta laughed. "And the Romans used a plant called rue to ward off the evil eye. My great-aunt had a rue tree behind her front door." "And did it work?" "Well, she's never had bad luck. At least not that I know of." Dona Marta shrugged. "But look, there's a plant that everyone knows, corn. The Mayans and Aztecs grew corn to eat and even made flour. It was like their rice." "Wow, Grandma, so corn is like an ancient superfood?" "Superfood indeed. And it doesn't stop there. The Chinese used ginger to aid digestion. My mother used to make ginger tea when I had a tummy ache. Ginger is kind of spicy, but it works." Dona Marta poked her grandson lightly. "And there's aloe vera. You know that little plant your aunt uses in her hair? The Egyptians used it to treat burns. Like sunscreen from back in the day." "Almost that." Dona Marta laughed. "And don't forget the cocoa. The Aztecs made a bitter drink with it, like sugar-free chocolate. They thought it gave energy." "So chocolate comes from an ancient plant?" "Yes. And there's more. The Amazon Indians used cinchona bark to treat malaria. The Spanish took the plant to Europe and saved many people." "Wow, Grandma, so the ancient plants were like a natural pharmacy." "That's right. And look, the Persians used saffron to add color and flavor to their food. It's that orange spice your mom uses on rice. Saffron is expensive, right?" "Very. In the past, it was worth more than gold." "And there's rosemary. The Greeks used it to improve memory. Students put sprigs in their hair before exams. So rosemary is like a medicine for forgetfulness?" "You could say yes." Dona Marta smiled. "And don't forget the blonde. The Romans used it to make crowns for the winners. It was like a prize. Like a plant gold medal?" "Exactly." Dona Marta got up and picked up the broom again. "And there's nettle. Ancient Europeans used it to make soup and even fabric. Isn't nettle that plant that burns?" "That's it. But they cooked and used the fibers to make clothes." "And there's cilantro. The Egyptians placed them in the tombs of the pharaohs." "Why?" "They said it helped with the passage to the other world." Dona Marta shrugged. "And there's mint. The Greeks used it to freshen their breath. Like a gum from back in the day." "That. And don't forget the clove. The Chinese chewed to improve their breath too. And the Indians of North America used echinacea to strengthen the immune system. So it's like a medicine for the flu?" "More or less." "And there's lavender. The Romans used it to perfume bathwater. Like a soap from the old days?" "That. And there's thyme. The Egyptians used it in the mummification process." "Wow, so the thyme was like a preservative?" "Exactly." Dona Marta finished sweeping and sat down again. "And finally, there's sage. The Romans used it to heal wounds. So sage was like a plant band-aid?" "That's right." Dona Marta laughed. "Did you see that? Ancient plants were powerful. They healed, fed, perfumed, and even protected." Lucas was thoughtful for a moment. "Grandma, We still use many of these plants today, right? Yes. Many of them are in our kitchen, in the garden, even in medicines from the pharmacy. The difference is that in the past people depended on them for everything. So we should take more care of the plants? For sure. Dona Marta ruffled her grandson's hair. Now go do your homework. But remember, the next time you see a plant, it might have an incredible story to tell. Lucas smiled and entered the house, but stopped at the door. Grandma, will you tell me more tomorrow? Of course. Dona Marta laughed. But now go study. And so, among brooms, stories, and ancient plants, Lucas discovered that the natural world held much more interesting secrets than any cell phone game. Lucas ran to his room, but he couldn't concentrate on his lesson. Grandma's words echoed in her head. An incredible story. He looked out the window. Dona Marta's backyard was full of green, rosemary, mint, even a pomegranate tree in the corner. Suddenly he had an idea. He picked up his science notebook and opened it to a blank page. He drew a basil plant, just like the one that grew near the kitchen. Below, he wrote, Plants of the Ancients. And he started making a list. 1. Basil, used by the Greeks for rituals. 2. Rosemary, the Egyptians placed it in tombs. 3. Pomegranate, the Persians believed it gave strength. The doorbell rang. It was Joao, his friend from the building next door. So, are you going to play ball? Joao asked, already kicking a pebble. I can't. I'm doing a cool business. Lucas showed the notebook. About ancient plants. John frowned. Plants? How boring. No, it's not. Just look. Lucas pointed to the rosemary. The Romans used it for memory. Like, if you smelled it, you remembered things better. Serious? Joao smelled the sheet that Lucas tore off. It actually smells good. And there's more. Lucas opened a smile. Grandma said that we still use these plants today. Like garlic. Roman soldiers ate to stay strong. Joao sat on the floor, interested. And what else? Well, Lucas leafed through the notebook. Aloe vera was used to cure burns. The Indians here in Brazil used it for everything. Aloe is slimy. But it works. Lucas laughed. Grandma has a foot in the backyard. Want to see? The two ran to the back of the house. Dona Marta was watering the plants. Grandma, can I show Joao the aloe vera? Of course. She smiled. But be careful, don't squeeze too much. Joao touched the sheet carefully. Wow, it looks like jello. This is what helps the skin heal. Lucas explained. The Egyptians even called it the plant of immortality. John's eyes widened. Like, can you live forever? No, silly. Lucas gave a playful shove. But it helped tend to the wounds. Dona Marta laughed. You two will end up becoming scientists. Or ancient plant hunters. Joao said, excited. Lucas looked at the yard, imagining all the stories those leaves held. Maybe even more than Grandma knew. Shall we do more research tomorrow? He asked. Deal. John replied. But now, let's play ball? Lucas laughed and put the notebook in his pocket. Just a little. Then we come back here. And so, between kicking the ball and discovering things in the backyard, the two friends learned that the past wasn't just something in a book. It was there, alive, in the plants that grew around them. The two ran to the dirt field behind Dona Marta's house. The old ball bounced between the feet, raising dust. Did you see John's kick yesterday? Lucas teased, dribbling his friend. Oh, stop. John laughed, trying to steal the ball. It was luck. Dona Marta appeared at the kitchen window, with a plate of cookies in her hand. Boys, stop for a moment. Do you want water with lemon? We want it. The two shouted together. While they were drinking, Joao looked at the yard again. You know, Lucas, we could make an herbarium. A what? Like an album with dry leaves and notes. This way we don't forget anything. Lucas bit into a cookie, thinking, what if we show it to the science teacher? He might even help. Good idea. Joao clapped his hands. But first we need to find more plants. Dona Marta shook her head, smiling. You don't stop, do you? That's fine, but watch out for the nettles. The two laughed and returned to the field. The ball rolled, but now there was something different in the air. It was as if every leaf, every flower, had a secret waiting to be discovered. What if we find a plant that no one else knows about? John asked, kicking the ball high. Then we become famous. Lucas replied, jumping to head the ball. The afternoon flew by. When the sun began to set, the two threw themselves onto the grass, tired. Tomorrow we start the herbarium, Lucas said, looking at the sky. And research more about Grandma's plants, Joao completed. Dona Marta appeared again, this time with a flashlight. Time to go in, scientists. Tomorrow there's more adventure. They stood up, covered in dirt and happy. As they walk home, Lucas nudged Joao. You know what's cooler? What? We are making history too. Like the old ones. John smiled. Yeah. I think we are planting something new. The two entered the house smelling of grass and wet earth. Dona Marta had already prepared a snack, bread with honey and lemon balm tea. This is to give you energy for tomorrow, she said, winking. Joao bit the bread and sighed. Grandma, did you know that the Egyptians used aloe vera to cure burns? Of course, my son. And the Amazon Indians made medicine with jatoba bark, she replied, stirring the tea. Lucas's eyes widened. Do you swear? And what else did they use? Oh, there's boldo, which the Incas took for stomach pain. And rue, which the ancient Greeks believed ward off the evil eye. John almost choked. Evil eye? Like witchcraft? Dona Marta laughed. It's not witchcraft, it's culture. Each people has their beliefs. But the cool thing is that many of these plants still work. Lucas took a piece of bread and thought. So can we test some? Carefully, she warned. No experimenting without knowing. First we research, then we see if we can use it. The boys exchanged an excited look. Tomorrow we start in the backyard, Joao said. And then we go to the woods behind the school, Lucas added. Dona Marta shook her head, smiling. You two are going to become real botanists. That night, John couldn't sleep well. He kept imagining glowing plants, magical roots, and leaves that healed everything. When he finally fell asleep, he dreamed that he was an ancient scientist, mixing herbs in a giant cauldron. The next day, as soon as the sun rose, the two were already up. Lucas arrived running at Joao's house, with a backpack full of glass jars and an old notebook. I got everything, he said, panting. Joao was already waiting at the door, with scissors and a magnifying glass. Let's start with Grandma's garden. Dona Marta appeared at the window. Don't forget to write down the name of each plant. It can leave. The two shouted together. They ran into the yard. The first plant was easy, basil. The Romans used this to season food, Joao read on his cell phone. And to keep mosquitoes away, Lucas added. Cool. Joao cut a twig and put it in the pot. First sample from the herbarium. Then came the mint. This one the Chinese used for headaches, Lucas said. And the Indians to make tea, Joao remembered. They continued like this, collecting leaves, writing everything down and laughing when an ant climbed onto Lucas' hand. When they arrived at the rue, Joao stopped. Look, Grandma said that the Greeks used it to ward off bad things. Lucas grimaced. But what if we don't believe that? We write it down anyway. After all, they believed. They continued until the sun was bright. When Joao's stomach growled, he looked at his friend. I think we deserve a break. Lucas agreed. Let's see what Grandma prepared. Dona Marta was already in the kitchen, cutting apples. What's up, scientists? Have you discovered the secret of life? Not yet, Joao laughed. But we already have 5 plants in the herbarium. And tomorrow we are going to the woods, Lucas remembered. Dona Marta placed the apples on a plate. Eat. Then we'll see what else we can do. While they were chewing, Joao looked at the yard. Do you know what I'm thinking? What? Lucas asked. If we find a new plant, we can name it. Lucas almost choked. Like, Planta Joao Lucas. Or Lucas Joao, Joao laughed. Even better, Planta dos Exploradores. Dona Marta shook her head, but she was smiling. You two are impossible. But deep down, she knew they were doing something important. And who knows, maybe one day, someone would study the plants they found. Night fell quickly. The moon appeared between the trees in the yard, illuminating the leaves they had gathered. Let's put the plans away properly, Joao said, taking the notebook. Tomorrow we need more. Lucas nodded and opened his backpack. Inside, there was a plastic bag with boldo leaves, a sprig of rosemary and annatto seeds that Dona Mata had given. We should make a map, Lucas suggested. So you don't get lost tomorrow. Good idea. João took a pencil and drew the yard. This is the house. Here the river. And there, near the mango tree, there is a path into the forest. What if we find a poisonous plant? Lucas asked, suddenly. João stopped drawing. He looked at his friend. We don't play. Just write it down. What if we accidentally touch it? Then we wash our hands in the river. Dona Mata spoke. Lucas took a deep breath. It wasn't fear, but care. He didn't want to ruin the adventure. What if we find a plant that no one knows about? John smiled. Then we become famous. Dona Mata appeared at the door, with a flashlight in her hand. Time to sleep, explorers. Tomorrow morning we will go far. But what if? No, what ifs? She cut off, but smiling. You've already done more today than most people do in a lifetime. João closed the notebook. Lucas stored the plants carefully. Good evening, Dona Mata. Good night, boys. Dream about leaves and roots. They went to the room. The window was open, and the smell of wet earth wafted in along with the wind. John. Hi. Do you really think we can find a new plant? John thought a little. I don't know. But if we don't look, we certainly won't find it. Lucas smiled. So tomorrow we'll look. And before going to sleep, the two were already imagining names. Full moon plant. Folha do Rio. Root of dreams. Outside, the bush waited. Morning came quickly. The sun had barely risen and Dona Mata was already in the kitchen, stirring a pot of porridge. Wake up, lazy people. She shouted, banging a spoon on the pan. The coffee is ready. John rubbed his eyes. Lucas stretched, dropping the notebook he had left on the bed. I'm coming, said João, jumping out of bed. The two washed their faces in the basin of cold water and ran to the kitchen. The smell of cinnamon and honey filled the air. Eat quickly, said Dona Mata, placing bowls on the table. Today we are going to the Valley of the Stones. They say there are plants there that not even the Indians knew about. Lucas's eyes widened. Serious? Serious. But it has to be quick. If it rains, the path becomes slippery. João swallowed a spoonful of porridge. What if we get lost? Dona Mata laughed. Don't worry. I know every stone in that place. And you have notebooks, right? The boys nodded. Lucas took the pencil he had kept in his pocket, ready to write everything down. After coffee, Dona Mata gave each of us a backpack. Water, flashlight, a pocket knife and a piece of cloth. If you find anything strange, wrap it carefully. What if it's poisonous? Asked João, looking at the backpack. Then we don't play. She blinked. But I think you know how to recognize the dangerous ones, right? The two exchanged a look. They had spent the whole week studying the plants in Dona Mata's book. They knew that the wild cassava leaf burned the skin and that the milkvine juice left the mouth numb. We know, said Lucas, confidently. Dona Mata smiled. Then let's go. The sun doesn't wait. They left through the back door. Dona Mata's backyard was already hot, even early in the morning. The chicken scratched near the wall, and a thrush sang at the jabuticaba tree. First stop, the creek, announced Dona Mata. There's a plant there that the ancients used to heal wounds. João pulled out the notebook. What's the name? It doesn't have a name yet. Or rather, there is, but it's in Tupi. We call it scar weed. Lucas frowned. How are we supposed to know which one it is? Dona Mata pointed to the floor. Look at the leaves. They are long, thin, and have a white stripe in the middle. And the smell? She sniffed the air. It's kind of sweet, like honey. The boys bent down, searching. John found it first. I thought. He showed a little green leaf with a white stripe. That's right. Dona Mata took the plant carefully and rubbed it between her fingers. The Indians made tea with it and put it on their wounds. They say it healed in 2 days. Lucas wrote everything down in his notebook. What if we find a plant that's not in the book? Dona Mata shrugged. Then we take it home and research it. Maybe you found something new. João felt butterflies in his stomach. Like a plant that no one else knows about? Exactly. The three continued walking. The path was narrow, full of roots and stones. Every now and then, Dona Mata would stop and point at something. Look over there. That big tree is a jatoba. The Indians use the bark to make medicine for fever. And that purple flower? Lucas asked, pointing to a bush. It's lent. The leaves are used to make cough tea. John stopped suddenly. Dona Mata, what if we find a plant that not even the Indians knew about? She stopped and looked at him. Then we make history, boy. Lucas smiled. Then let's go quickly. They continued forward, with the sun beating down on their backs. The Valley of Stones was still far away, but the three of them already had their heads full of possibilities. And, in the middle of the bush, something was waiting for them. Something no one had ever seen.